Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back with your daily crypto news and analysis. And there is a lot to go over. We just got a warning from Brad Garlinghouse a couple days ago, and I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to address it. But on top of that, I do hope you are all having a beautiful day or a beautiful night wherever you guys are out there in the world. Let's dive on in to the whole idea of BRICS replacing the US dollar, killing the US economy, and ultimately rising against the US. So this has been a growing narrative, and I'm sure that you guys are probably all aware of it at this point in time. I think that for like the last 2 years since we announced sanctions against Russia, we've been hearing these conversations heating up more and more and more, and now even when I'm out and about, people outside of finance, people outside of crypto, I keep hearing discussions around how BRICS are going to kill the US dollar, the US dollar's done, and it's just the whole idea of that's what they want you to see. Don't look on the other side of the coin sort of narrative, right? Although, yes, the BRICS should be taken seriously on what they are trying to do and what they're trying to achieve, what most people are failing to realize is just how weak their fiat currencies are as well. Outside of the US dollar, and trust me, the US dollar is failing, and it has failed because fiat currencies just don't work when they're not backed by anything besides massively overprinting and debt. Every single currency out there is also failing. So what really is failing here is not the US dollar, but the entire fiat currency ecosystem. The entire financial system as we know it is failing. But this is leading us into a world of, for the most part, everyone is unknown about, but we have been studying what's happening. And what's happening is the old system is falling and failing because we are welcoming in the new financial system. This is going to be backed by things of value like commodities, gold, for an example, that is going to be tied to digital currencies. And this is where you start to see tokenization of gold as well. So it's fractionalized and things are now pegged to a specific weight of gold. Gold might even be revalued. Things are now significantly changing. But regardless, we have BRICS, China's ecosystem, or economy sees major growth. BRICS countries to stop trading in the US dollar, plans to introduce new currency. This is like all around May. Guys, this is May 10th. This is May 11th. This is May 10th. 5 new countries looking to join BRICS alliance. The US dollar dominance gradually fading. Like, this is all in the last couple of days. Now, also over here, and this is actually just recently, this is February 29th, actually, of this year. So we have the dollar and dollar payment system remain overwhelmingly dominant. According to the Bank for International Settlements' latest survey, the dollar as of 2022 was part of 88% of all international transactions. That percentage is only slightly lower than in 1989, testimony to the dollar's resilience. Meanwhile, the euro accounts for 31% of international transactions, the yen 17%, and the pound 13%, and the renminbi only 7%, up from 4% in 2019. So, are we seeing dominance right now dropping significantly or anything like that? No. Is it starting to? Are we going to see the dominance around the dollar dropping? Yeah, 100%. So it's only going to continue to slide. But is the dollar overnight going to be replaced? No. But one thing that I want you guys to all realize is, guess what? If we replace the US dollar with another fiat currency, and that is the reserve currency, what change is that going to make? It's not going to make a difference. The fiat currency system is broken, and it's been broken since inception. We need something completely new. And we're going to talk about that. But over here, the IMF seems to be saying the quiet part out loud. Breaking news. The International Monetary Fund is warning that widening geopolitical divides are disrupting global trade flows, creating spillover effects that are dividing the world's economies into competing blocks. The foundation of the system is slowly changing. Some countries are re-evaluating their heavy reliance on the dollar in their international transactions and reserve holdings. And this is where we start to see the dominance actually breaking down more and more. And that's when we'll start to see more and more articles like this. Now, if we go over to economic growth forecast for G7 and BRICS countries in 2024, this got posted on April 24th, by the way. Here we have the full breakdown. So this is G7 and BRICS real GDP growth forecast for 2024. And here we have the US at 2.7%, Canada at 1.2%, and the rest are pretty low in terms of under 1%. But then we have the BRICS, and this is very interesting. Almost every single BRICS nation outside of Saudi Arabia, Brazil, and also South Africa, they're all at a projected gain well over the US. India, 6.8%, China, 4.6%, the UAE, 3.5%, Iran, 3.3%, Russia, 3.2%, Egypt, 3.0%. Saudi Arabia is at 2.6%, Brazil is at 2.2%, and also South Africa is at 0.9%, and then Ethiopia is at 6.2%. But we have down here that Saudi Arabia has not yet accepted and is still considering the invitation to join BRICS. And yes, they are. There was a few articles that came out in terms of misinformation that said like Saudi Arabia already agreed, but they went back on it. But regardless, outside of the US, we are now starting to see a lot of those BRICS nations growing rapidly. And it's only going to continue to grow at a rapid pace because guess what? They're innovating. They're changing. They're changing the ways that they are doing business. They are moving away from the US dollar and also the SWIFT network, which is because guess what? It's all weaponized against them. But beyond this, what did I say? And this is back in August, by the way, of 2023. What did I say back then? I said Biden is being utilized in a way that most are misinterpreting. Let me explain. Everyone has seen the countless videos of him stumbling over, barely being able to say a full sentence, stuttering, etc. What's the goal here? Well, at the right media is saying he is incompetent, and most would agree. Correct. The end goal here is that you'd blame the downfall of our economy and the traditional system on incompetence. The truth is that it's all by design, and Biden isn't even the one in charge. He is not the one pulling the strings. Rather, someone else is pulling his strings. BRICS expanding with Russia launching a CBDC, the US falling greatly behind, the dollar is being challenged heavily, blah, blah. Remember, problem and solution. Create the problem while already having the solution. Now we're getting the reaction, by the way. They want the reaction to be so loud, so heavy, to the point where we're like, BRICS is overtaking the US. We need to do something. We need to innovate. We need to do something now. We already have the rails and infrastructure in place. FedNow is that. Most don't view it like that, but the US is ready to accommodate this new technology when they need to. A US CBDC is probably already created. They are just waiting for the perfect launch. And by the way, when we just saw this year, the Fed say, no, we're not, looking at a US CBDC. We're not even, developing one. We're not even designing one. We're not even in the research phase. Guess what? We already know that they have a proof of concept. We already know that they've been working on a US CBDC and a digital dollar for, I want to say like 4 years now or so. Might even be longer. But we also know from the Atlantic Council that there is like 4 or 5 different digital dollar projects out there already. So when we really look at the Fed saying, oh no, we're not looking into a CBDC, we're not even, looking at, designing one, researching one, guess what? They're wrong. And they're lying to you. They're directly lying to you. Go back to March 2022 when they were distracting you with Russia and sanctions. What did they launch? Executive Order 14067. Go read what it is, and it will open your eyes to their plan. And for those out there that don't want to go read it, it's okay. You don't have to. It outlines digital assets and CBDCs, specifically a US CBDC. They will continue to paint the picture that the US is losing dominance globally and that the reserve currency status is in trouble. This is when they use that and play off of it to introduce the CBDC system. They will sell it by saying we need to protect the US and the dollar's global status. Welcome to the digital age of finance. Focus on researching utility tokens that will most likely be utilized within this new system because it's happening. A few. Keep focusing on the fourth industrial revolution and what's happening behind the scenes. And yes, this is why I always say focus on the bigger picture, because what they're painting right now in front of you, it's a false painting. They're giving you pretty much what they want you to believe. Now over here we have, and this is from Burning Stars, I'm not sure most people realize the importance of this video and how it's a confirmation that XRP will eventually appreciate in price. Not only did David Schwartz suggest it's a very possible scenario for the XRP currency to become a world reserve currency, but he clearly says that if it happens, it would make some people millionaires. So he's basically describing a case where XRP would be higher than it is today, logically much higher than it is now. It's actually very unlikely most XRP holders would be millionaires at less than $10. If you take the XRP rich list into consideration, many won't even see their first millions before $50 or $100. Now, can you argue how realistic this scenario is? Fair enough. But we know there is much more behind the scenes than just this scenario, making the future price of XRP almost guaranteed to increase to some interesting all-time high. For many of us, there is not a single doubt that this is going to happen. It's a reminder for all the people who fall for the constant FUD by people trying to discourage others, the nothing will happen people, the Debbie Downer people who are secretly accumulating while they are doing that. You need to understand that not everybody has your best interest at heart. They want you to miss the boat. Wealth puts people's status to a different level. They enjoy dominating people and expose their lifestyle for everybody to see and create envy. They can't do that if everyone else has the same status. This is the reason why they don't share this information about the new financial system, not even to their close one. And even if they do, they are not too concerned about them missing the boat because this is an opportunity for them to say, I told you so's, and gain respect. It didn't start with Twitter. Twitter allows us to access this kind of information more easily, but people always try to discourage others before that, telling them to not invest in some stocks while they were packing their bags. The same is happening today, and because most of them know where XRP is going, they will try to convince you that it's going to zero and has no future, or even if Ripple has a future, XRP won't increase in price. They will tell you to stop dreaming. They will tell you to invest into something else, Bitcoin or stocks. You get the picture. And even though I hold other coins, there is no other one with such a bright future partnerships and making the crypto world going in the right direction. I'm telling you right now, I despise these people in the comment section. They sound so stupid. But when it comes to investments, they always been there, spreading their negativity and pseudo knowledge. And check this video clip out.
Do you believe that there can be two existing world reserve currencies to simultaneously exist?
I do, and I think that could happen. I think it's quite realistic that a lot of the world is just done with the dollar as the reserve currency. I think that there's a lot of places that are willing to try something else. And one of my scenarios, and I don't think it's going to play out quickly, but like one of my wild case success scenarios for a digital asset is if countries start to realize that the US dollar is not going to be the reserve currency forever. Other things are going to be the reserve currency. And the same thing that we saw with banks. Like people, when we started selling software to banks, people would say to me, why would a bank use something that like you guys were selling them when they could use something that was like made by banks? And what they didn't realize is that, only like 10 banks in the country, on the planet, are Deutsche Bank, HSBC, Credit Suisse, JP Morgan Chase, like the ones who would build a system that the entire planet would run on. For the rest of the banks, that's 6,000 smaller banks, those are their biggest, strongest competitors. Those are the entities they hate the most. They would not want to use the system built and maintained by them because it's going to be biased in favor of them, their biggest and strongest competitors. And I think the same thing could happen to nations. Like every nation would love for their currency to be the world reserve currency. That's helped the U.S., that's grown the U.S. economy, quote unquote, unfairly by leaps and bounds for decades. And every other country would be like, yeah, we'd like to have the world be the world's reserve currency. But the only countries that could possibly pull it off is the U.S. holding its position, maybe the EU, maybe Russia, maybe one or two others. But realistically, most countries know that if there's going to be a new world reserve currency that's a country's currency, it's not going to be them. And so they might actually prefer a currency that nobody can control to one that's controlled by their largest geopolitical rivals. And so that's like what I think is the biggest possible success scenario for digital assets. If these countries are like, okay, well, the US dollar can't hold on forever, but it's not going to be our currency because no one's going to want to repeat the US dollar scenario. Nobody but the EU wants the EU to replace the dollar, right? Nobody but Russia wants the ruble to replace the dollar. Nobody but China wants the yuan to replace the dollar. So maybe they could settle on a currency that nobody could control rather than one controlled by their most powerful geopolitical rival. So if you want a success scenario, that's the one that I think is the most likely.
But the money question is, how do you get everybody to agree?
Well, I mean, they might agree if the alternative is that their geopolitical rivals force some new replacement for the dollar that's not, that just if they just replace, the old boss with a new boss. If the choice is no boss, if that happens to make a bunch of cryptocurrency people rich, I don't think they're going to see that as too much of a minus.
That's good.
It was great talking to you guys.
So yeah, I mean, as we really go back to this clip, the reason why I'm bringing it back up is because, yeah, we are at that stage, right, where everyone wants to be the reserve currency. I mean, it's like putting anything into perspective, right? If you have the chance to be in this dominant position at the number one spot, like everyone wants to win the race, right? Like everyone wants first place, but guess what? Not everyone can win that race. Which is why they all are now calling for, a decentralized currency. They want a decentralized reserve currency. Now, what's the chances of XRP being, a decentralized reserve currency? It's questionable, right? In my opinion, I think that the best way to actually look at this, because we already have data in front of us that actually is telling us like this is becoming a reality, is all central bank digital currencies decentralizing the entire financial system. Right? So now you don't even need a reserve currency. You don't need a reserve currency the second that you have instant settlement, first off. Let's get that out there. So the main reason why the US dollar is such a dominant currency is because we need something that is stable and has a lot of adoption tied to it. That way, we can trust that when we make an international payment, aka a cross-border payment or an FX transaction, well, guess what? We know that dollar is going to be there. We know that transaction is going to be stable. We know that we can trust that transaction to go through and not fail, or at least at most points, right? Because there is still failure even with cross-border payments. But we want it to maintain its value. We want it to be stable for days so that it can settle. But if you have instant settlement, you don't need something to be extremely, stable. It can settle immediately. But you still want that stability tied to it. That's why when we look at CBDCs, possibly backed by gold issued out on DLTs, that's the scenario, the likely scenario of where we're headed, because now you don't actually have a reserve currency. You have all these CBDCs, all these different currencies, and then you have something at the center point bridging all of them, where XRP could essentially fit that, gap. Now, is it just going to be XRP, or is it going to be XRP and XLM and HBAR? Well, there could be multiple winners. There definitely could be. But XRP has been purpose-built for something like this. XRP has all of the qualities needed to fill that role. Now, is it going to be XRP? We don't know, right? It's a great bet. XRP has been labeled and mentioned on so many documents, on so many PDF files. Ripple themselves have been working alongside some of the largest elite organizations that make these major decisions around the financial space. So in my opinion, XRP is one of the best bets. Now, on top of this, what's going to really kind of push us towards this? What's going to be a collapse? It's going to be a currency collapse. We recently talked about Japan, right? How the US is bailing out Japan. That's because Japan holds they're the largest holder of US debt. But just recently, we have Brad Garlinghouse believes that there will be another Black Swan event, most likely involving the collapse of Tether, right? Everyone's looking at Tether. Big shout out to XRP XLM verse for this. Now, I don't know if it's going to be Tether. In my opinion, I do personally believe that's going to be the collapse of our financial system. The reason why I say that is because over here, you have almost 300 banks that are at higher risk of failure, followed by signs of trouble at regional banks reignite sector fears. And this was on March 1st. This just got posted on the 8th of this month. So yeah, banks are in trouble, but listen closely.
Do I think there's going to be another Black Swan? Of course, 100%. I just don't know exactly what it is. The only one that's going to be an interesting one to watch, and I don't even know if I call it a Black Swan, because I feel like Black Swan by definition can't really be, it's like predicted. Oh, didn't see that happening.
Yeah.
The US government is going after Tether. Like that is clear to me. I view Tether as a very important part of the ecosystem, and I don't know how to predict
the impact that will have on the rest of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Do you think, is it possible to take out Bitcoin, for instance? Like, do you think there's any sort of technological thing that could take out Bitcoin, high performance computing or quantum computing or any, there's a lot of rumors out there, but I'm curious from a technologist standpoint too, is like, are there any existential threats to the core asset propping this entire ecosystem up.
Yeah. I'm not smart enough to say yes.
Yeah.
I would say, look, as much as I think Chris Larson is genius level, being able to see around corners about where the world's going, David Schwartz, the chief technology officer at Ripple, and really one of the architects of the XRP ledger. I mean, this guy's genius level on technology that I'm just like, I'm in awe of being able to work with him. I did call him once, and I'm like, I had some conversation with somebody who's in quantum computing, and I was kind of like, should I be worried about this? And he walked me through why he felt this isn't like a little bit like that's a red herring. That's not a real thing. And he kind of explained to me why he felt that way. And so I won't bore people with kind of some of his arguments here, but I think there will be black swans. I don't think one of them is going to be the risk of quantum computing to the crypto market at large.
So you guys have it. And again, I love the fact that he mentioned, how good Chris Larson and even David Schwartz are at both predicting the future of finance, predicting the technology usage, things like that. Because when we go back over here to this video, right, it's significant to mention the fact that like David Schwartz knows how these things work. He has been around the space for so long, and it doesn't say like, all right, yeah, it's guaranteed that XRP is going to be no. But I'm just saying like, there's a lot of individuals around Ripple and even around XRP that are extremely intelligent. They know what's going on in terms of the financial world, and I think that we're all aware at this point in time, like it's not a black swan event in the sense that like, oh yeah, no, banks are going to collapse, like the US dollar is done. Like, no, these things are predictable. Like, we know that the US is in trouble. We know that the economy around the US is, falling at a rapid pace. What's going to be the black swan event that pushes us into CBDC territory where it's like, all right, we can't ignore this anymore. We have to launch now in terms of a CBDC, right? Because that's the end game scenario. They want this new system. They want the CBDCs out there. Well, I personally see it as we're probably going to have BRICS launch a major currency to combat the US, which is going to be a currency that they all design and develop together. Is it going to be XRP? We don't know, right? Probably going to be CBDCs. If they beat the US to a CBDC, we'll have no choice but to push a CBDC. And at that time, something, we don't know what, is going to cause a financial catastrophe within the US. Is it going to be another 08? We don't know. A lot of people were kind of overlooking the fact that Japan was defaulting greatly back in 2022, leading into 2023, and then in 2024, well, we saw that the US had to bail them out. That was unpredictable. We knew that it was going to get bad, but we just didn't know that it was going to get that bad. Anything is a possibility in terms of black swan. One thing that I do know, and one thing that, in my opinion, is pretty much guaranteed, is that something along the way is going to have to push us into a CBDC territory. We're going to have to push a CBDC. We're going to have to launch a CBDC. And during that time, yes, crypto, DLT, it's all going to be a high probability of them being fully tapped in. In terms of what specific players are going to be tapped in, I've always said it, Ripple and XRP will play a vital role here. But we already got a warning from, Brad Garlinghouse. We got a warning from David Schwartz on how these things will look. And I feel as though at this current, point in time, the BRICS card is still being played to a massive, massive volume. And I feel as though everyone is looking at the most predictable scenario, which is, oh, the BRICS are killing the US dollar. The US dollar's done. The US dollar is going to fail. No, that's not the case. In fact, I feel as though this is all just, it's what they want you to think. But realistically speaking, they are creating this narrative to bring in and usher in this new financial system. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.